the outward look of this, to me, really does capture the prototype. As a budget way to get into sound without actually compromising the sound quality, this is an excellent package from Hornby. Hi there everyone, it's great to see you again. I'm Jennifer Kirk and it's really good to welcome you along to the channel. And today we've got a box opening and review of a product that I've had my eye on for quite some time. It's not a current up-to-date model in the Hornby catalogue, but it's still available nonetheless, and I've decided to take a punt on it, and I'm going to show you just how this model squares up. Also, don't forget to check out today's channel sponsors. They are Train-O-Matic, and they are makers of DCC decoders and accessories. They are designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts. Visit them at trainomatic.com to see their full range, also available at tramfabrique.nl. But without further ado, let's take a closer look. Well, here it is. This is one of the Hornby super detailed Castle class locomotives. Now, I do have a Saint class in my collection, but I didn't have a Castle. And I remember from back in my Hornby 00 days, the Bristol Castle was one of my favourite locomotives. So it was a really nice opportunity when this was brought to my attention to pick up a modern super detailed example to be able to run on Weir Yard. And as you can see, an added bonus is this comes with Hornby's TTS sound factory fitted, and so it has the applicable Castle class sound chip. Now, it's the same chip that you can buy separately, so if you get a different running number that doesn't come with that, you can always fit the sound in. They are all designed to take it, but this just saves you that hassle and actually gives you quite a good package because it's a very favourable price compared with buying a locomotive and sound chip separately. So I really do like that Hornby is doing these packages. I'm going to try and show you the end of the box there, and this is catalogue number R3383 TTS BR Castle class locomotive, Earl of St Germans, number 5050, and there it says with TTS sound. Although the cupboard monkey does tell me it may be Earl of Saint Germain, but actually I think St Germans was just what we always called it when we were on holidays in Cornwall. I believe it's a place that's not that far from Loo, and that's Loo spelled L-O-O-E for all those people who are currently sniggering. So I'm not sure whether that would be pronounced with a French kind of accenting, or whether it would just be St. Germans. But certainly, it was news to me. I didn't realise that some of the Castle class actually had names that weren't after castles, but I guess there's only so many castles in the country to name locomotives after, and when they ran out, I guess they had to look to other things to name them. So it's an interesting little prototype, but let's hurry up and get this out of the box, because you don't come here to look at cardboard, we come here to look at the good stuff. And I will just quickly show you this. It does come with the booklet as well. This is the booklet, if you bought the TTS sound chip separately, would come with that, and it just gives you an idea in here of all of the CV settings, what they do, and also all of the other different functions and stuff, which just helps you get the best out of this sound chip. So I'm just going to put all that back, and then I think this is just the usual quick guide for lubrication, a word of warning about a few things, and also how you get into the tender there for DCC fitting. What I find intriguing is that the diagram actually appears to show a 21-pin chip, but as far as I know, these are all 8-pin chassis, so I'm not entirely sure. That may just be a hangover from when the TTS sound was first introduced as a factory-only fitted option. I believe they may have been a 21-pin chip that was bought in We have this little detailing pack, which you can see has all the brake rigging for under the locomotive and tender, vacuum pipe, and a front coupling there with the NEM pocket, which you can fit if you wanted to run these backwards. One thing I would say about these is that they would tend to actually be turned on turntables at the end of the line. Running tender first was very much a rarity for these locomotives when operating a train. So actually, for most people, that front coupling is not really a necessity. This is the locomotive, and it's got that wonderful new locomotive smell, a sort of a slightly plasticky smell that you get from these things. And it really does look resplendent in the BR kind of a Brunswick green livery there. Now, I just like the outward look of this, to me, really does capture the prototype. Now, I've been very familiar with the Hornby 00 Bristol Castle, which was a very heavy, chunky model, and actually back in its day that was considered an exceptionally good model that held its own even right through probably to the 1980s. But this really does take matters to another level. If I put this on its side, you can see against the line all of this exquisite rivet detail. Not too pronounced, but certainly there. And it captures the look of the side of the tender perfectly. I'm really pleased to see this. Where it's tampo printed with the BR Early Crest logo, it is super sharp and all the colours are accurate. There's no smudging that I can see. There's no bleed over that I can see. And there's also, more importantly for me, no real distortion where this goes over the rivets. And when I run my finger over there, the rivets are there, but it doesn't cause any kind of ugly distortion with that totem. Moving back across the locomotive, some of the brasswork is really nicely and finely picked out, and the actual nameplates there, where it says Earl of, I'm going to call it St. Germans. I'm sure I'm going to be put to rights on that, as I usually am, over pronunciation of places. But it's separately applied. It feels like it could well be an etched brass nameplate, but it's actually quite firmly on there. And I always like to see that. I don't like to see bits of detail that just rain off onto the floor the first time you get it out of the box. The tampo printing elsewhere, well, the lining is pretty exquisitely done. Again, it's not phased by any of that super fine rivet detail. We've got flush glazing on the cab. Again, this is an area that Hornby do seem to do quite well on these locomotives. And the boiler bands too. I'm just looking there. I'm just going to get it a little bit closer to my eyes. And they're straight, they're true. We've got a kind of orange, black, orange. There does seem to be a little bit of wavering on the black, just on, as far as I can tell, those two. And I'm not quite sure what's going on there, whether it's kind of moved slightly on the tampo printing. It's not massively noticeable. And one word of warning that I'll give you is you may look at it and think, gosh, that really does stand out, but we are using quite an extreme magnification. Under normal viewing distances, you're really not going to see that, but I'm pointing it out just to give you a full and fair review. Now, one area that really does stand out for me is this crosshead detail here. This is very characteristic of the Castle class locomotives, the way it's got these sort of flared guides, and all of this looks to be, it's difficult to say, it feels like it's metal. It might not be, but it does feel like it's got the durability of metal components, and they're finished almost in this gunmetal silver, and it really does look the part. In fact, yes, feeling that, it's all metal as far as I can tell, as are these exquisitely fluted connecting rods. Again, another area that Hornby does so well on their steam locomotives, getting them to kind of scale thickness, and they just look like they mean business, and they've got all of the detail that they need. So that is really nicely done. The cylinder blocks as well, they're all finished in black as they should be. The lining is straight and true, and we've got factory fitted here this drain cock bits and pieces. And actually, because the cylinders are quite far back, they can be factory fitted, and you can see that the degree of movement that the front bogie has is not restricted by having this as a fitted detail. The front frames, again, this is an area that I really liked on the Princess Coronation class, also from Hornby, and they've not disappointed as well on the Castle class locomotive. You can see right through, there's a sense of depth, there's a sense of actual engineering in there. It's not a suggestion of the frames, it really is the frames itself. The front bogie, characteristic of the newer Hornby models, is centre sprung, just like the full-size prototype. And as I've said before, this is a really nice feature that gives the locomotive a sense of grace when it goes through track work and around curves, and just makes it look more like the prototype. Back when I was younger, well, not that long ago, but certainly in decades past, we used to have to put up with front bogies that were on a pivot back here, and they used to swing right out on the curves and not really follow the locomotive or guide the locomotive through the track properly. There's none of that here. It really is a joy to watch this going through track work. To the underside, well, as I said before, some of the brake rigging detail is there to be fitted by the end user if you choose. I tend to not actually fit these a lot of the time because I find that they're fiddly, and actually from, when the locomotive's on the track, you don't really see any of that. Electrical pickups is from all 6 of the driving wheels, and also we've got a pickup for all 6 of the tender wheels, and this makes it pretty sure-footed through the track work. The connecting bar between locomotive and tender is semi-permanently fastened by these flathead screws, and I really do like this function. It's one of the things that I do always talk about with Hornby models, and it reduces the risk of these wires getting strained and pulling out from that tender plug. And that is a huge plus, because if these do pull out, you will have no end of pain getting that repaired, so a word of warning. You'll also notice an extra second hole here, and what this is it means that you can move that screw to that hole and it closer couples the tender and locomotive. So if you have more generous curves, or actually you're using this on an end-to-end layout without any real noticeable curves, so to speak, you can closer couple the locomotive and tender and get a much more prototypical gap between the two, which is a really great touch. Looking to the inside of the cab, another area that Hornby does ever so well. We've got all of that backhead detail with all the separately tampo printed stuff and gauges that actually under magnification you can see that they are gauges with markers on and needles and the like. The full plate though, this is an area I do have a gripe with, and I've had a gripe with a number of models. It's modelled in this not quite up, not quite down position, and by the feel of it, it's not hinged, so you're kind of lumbered with it in this halfway house, which once you notice it, I do feel that I've seen it hinged on other locomotives, and that does work a lot better. I understand why they've gone for that, but it does feel to me that it pleases no one, and in some respects maybe it could have been in the detail bag for the user to apply themselves, or even, God forbid, missed out altogether. So not really sure of that, I'm not convinced. But going to the rest of the tender, we've got a really nicely modelled coal load. It is an insert as far as I can feel, but I'm not going to try and take that out. They do tend to be quite tightly in there. And we've got all the rest of the detail with the toolboxes and the fire iron rests as well. There's this characteristic dome on the back of the tender. That was a feature of these Great Western Railway models. And we've got some of the lifting eyes and the water filler top as well. The tender itself has the characteristic kind of joggle up the side that flutes out the top, and they've captured the shape really nicely. Turning to the back, we've got all these separately applied footholds, a few extra bits of detail, some metal handrails. We've got lamp irons and fully sprung buffers. The rear tender coupling is factory fitted. It's in a NEM pocket and it's really nicely done. It's got that little bit of sideways sway, so actually does work really, really well. Moving back across the bottom, all the steps are in the right place. We've got this lovely brass looking detail. It is plastic, but the colour is quite right for the injectors and other boiler water fittings. Brake blocks are factory applied, and then we've also got these sanding pipes. They're a little bit loose at the back on this example, and at the front they're touching the wheel, but actually it's not really a big deal. They do bend. Just be careful to not bend them too far out of shape, otherwise you do run the risk of them coming out at weird angles or lodging in the track, which will affect running. To the front of the model, we've got vacuum pipe, factory applied, again sprung buffers. The NEM pocket is hidden in the front of the bogie and is very unobtrusive, so if you want to add that front coupling you can. We've got the characteristic swept front of the frames, captured nicely. The front of the inner two, I think that's the valve gear in there as well. Smokebox door, accurately captured, really nicely done. Metal handrails on there. Tampo printing for shed code plate, and the number 5050 is sharp and true. The chimney too, they've captured that characteristic copper top that was so characteristic of Swindon machines. And then looking across the top of the boiler, there's no parting line from the mould that I can particularly see, although maybe ever so slightly down there, but I think actually that's modelled true to the prototype, where there would be a seam where the actual metal cladding plates would fit together, and it all looks a really nice package. We've got the characteristic Swindon safety valve cover on there, and then we've got whistle at the back with a little whistle guard. It is a really nice package. One of the other things that Hornby has captured ever so well is this almost quite complex cab roof shape, which again was very characteristic of these locomotives, and I believe it was to ensure that they fit within the loading gauge. So you can see that it's a steep curve either side, which flattens off to a shallower curve at the top. So if we look at the cab roof from the back, it captures that shape perfectly. Water features and handrails down the side, all separately applied detail. And then a final point, if we look under the boiler we can see daylight. These characteristic steam pipes from the cylinders, they're raked back just like the prototype. It was one of the characteristic things that immediately screamed Castle Class on the Hornby 00 model, and Hornby have captured on this everything perfectly. So overall, a really fine package. When I've had it running, I found that it runs true and reliably straight out of the box. It's got reasonable traction, and with the aid of that centre sprung bogie, it follows through the track work really, really straight, true and nicely. The sound functions are nice. The volume is just right, and the functions, they sound like a Castle Class. And I've always said this about the TTS chips. They offer amazing value for money for what you get. So as a budget way to get into sound without actually compromising the sound quality all that much, this is an excellent package from Hornby. So to the scores, and first up, finish. Now there were a couple of little bits that I spotted, and they are quite minor, but just for completeness in this review I'm bringing them up. Some of the boiler banding, the black line was ever so slightly out of true. It can be seen, it is there, but you know, it's minor, and I'll leave it entirely up to you for what you think about that. Other aspects, well, I thought that the fall plate, that for me is a big glaring thing. Neither up nor down, and not actually really posable at all. And once you see it, it does look a bit weird. I understand why Hornby have made that compromise, but I just feel that there might be a different way to do that. The sanding pipes as well, some of these are slightly out of line and loose on this model, and it's something that if you're not careful they can catch in the track and cause no end of headaches. So it is an area that you just have to watch out for. Other than that, everything else on this model was really nicely done. By and large, the tampo printing was really good, the rivet detail was good, so I've got no hesitation to give this model a 9.4 out of 10. So to functionality, for me, actually, even if this wasn't DCC fitted, I felt that actually it was really easy to get into the tender if you wanted to chip a non-DCC ready model. And in terms of being able to fit your own sound chip in, the tender is all set up to make that really, really easy. Running wise, it was very sure-footed, it was smooth. When it runs, this valve gear is exquisite, just watching that go backwards and forwards, and I think them making this out of metal has really made a great model. The front bogie follows through the track absolutely perfectly, and that centre sprung pivot, just like the prototype, really does make a huge difference. Pickups from all 6 driving wheels and all 6 tender wheels does make it a sure-footed and reliable runner. So for functionality, I'm going to score this a 9.6 out of 10. Ease of use. Well, Hornby have offered this in a range of different liveries over the years. It's a great model regardless of whether you get this in the variety of GWR liveries, BR liveries, whether that be prototypically accurate for back in the day or preserved examples. So there's an awful lot to choose from. They also have a large range of GWR suitable coaches from the Collets to the Hawksworths, so the full package is available from Hornby. And that TTS sound chip to be able to sound fit non-TTS sound fitted locomotives makes things an absolute doddle. So for ease of use, out of the box running, this is great. There's not really a lot to fault it, so I'm going to give this a 9.9 out of 10. So, to aesthetics. As I've said throughout this review, they have captured all aspects of the Castle class really, really well. From this raked back steam pipe above the cylinder to the smoke box, the copper chimney cap, the brass dome, the etched brass nameplates, and indeed this very characteristic flayed out metal guide here for the crosshead. It's all there and it looks the part in every way. Aside from that full plate, this is nearly perfect, and I'm going to give it a 9.9 out of 10. And finally, we come to value for money. Well, sound fitted, this model is available for around the £130 to £140 mark, brand new. And for a sound fitted loco, that is actually a really, really great price. And even the non-sound fitted ones are coming in just a little shade over the £100 mark if you hunt around. And in this day and age of locomotives getting right up to the £200 mark even before you start thinking about sound fitting, that is really good value for money. So for this, I'm going to score it a 9.5 out of 10. So that brings us to a total score of a deserved 48.3 out of 50. This is a great locomotive and one that I've been wanting for quite some time. And now that I've got it here in my hands, that I've run it on the layout, I am not disappointed. So I can well recommend this model. Well, I hope you really enjoyed today's video, and don't forget that if you really like the look of this model and you want to see about getting one for yourself, we've got a couple of affiliate links down in the description box below just to help you out. And whilst these take you to either Rails of Sheffield or Hatton's, whichever you prefer, we believe these to be at a pretty favourable price. And you don't pay any extra for following that affiliate link and buying the product, but it does really help the channel out. And also don't forget that you can like this video and share it too. Also subscribe to the channel and you'll be the first to know about new videos as and when we put them up. But it's been really, really great to have your company, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Take good care of yourself. Bye for now. Today's video is sponsored by Train-O-Matic, makers of DCC decoders designed to be fully compatible with every manufacturer's locomotive. Visit train-o-matic.com to browse the full range and see what they've got suitable for you. I'd like to send out a huge thanks to everybody who supports me on Patreon, but a special thanks go out to Anthony Kidson, Michael Churchwood, Alec Ralph, Anthony Hunt, William Wade, Wayne Johns, Offshore Allen, oorail.co.uk, Tepic, Michael Lockie, and Helen Sink. Thank you. Without you guys, I couldn't do this.